All right. Hello and welcome to the Business Octopus, where we talk about all things sales, marketing, and technology. Today, I'm joined with Hayden Heath, who is from FireVault, here to talk about not only his business with fire safety, but just the getting started and all the issues, problems, mistakes, etc. along the way. Welcome, Hayden. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Appreciate for having me on. It's a great opportunity to talk a lot about business, something I'm very interested in, and it's a bit passionate about as well. So it's good.
Yeah, no worries at all. So yeah, FireVault, obviously fire protection, safety, training, that sort of stuff in and around the Brisbane area. And, we'd sort of met through Veteran Network, obviously both being ex-military.
Yep.
We tend to gravitate towards each other. And
Yep.
I noticed that, you're pretty well spoken. So I thought, what a great opportunity. And we were talking about like systems and things, and you'd gotten started with like Simpro and some other platforms as well. And you kind of got it into that automation space pretty early on, like straight out of the gate. You've gone and done all the automation stuff that normally we talk with a lot of businesses on how to set up. So I think first of all, that's really amazing, and you really seem like you're primed to like take it absolutely next level.
Yep.
But it hasn't been that easy, has it? Like we kind of mentioned that there's a few like hiccups, and even though your business is quite new and young, you want to tell us a bit about how you got started?
Yeah. So it's great because I knew out of school and then out of army, I really wanted to get into business, and I didn't really have any university degrees or any sort of smarts around that. I just had infantry, so just grunts going around using weapons and stuff. So from there, I sort of went with an easier option, was going into e-commerce. And from e-commerce, I was using like things like Shopify, and jumping on the tutorials that they had, and really just sort of researching with marketing, and you're talking to suppliers, you're talking to lots of other little things, and doing lots of product research. With that, Shopify was a really good, easy one. I think it was a good tool to start off and branch into. So you're making your website to have all these nice, easy buttons for you to really anyone to make. And took me about 18 months to really make that website, to be honest, to be able to, from starting with product and then till launch. But I learned a lot in that process. And from there, I learned that, it took me 18 months to, make that website. Now, if I was to do it again, it'd probably take me a couple of weeks, or if not, 3 or 4 days, to be honest. So, all that knowledge that builds up, it really compounds. It just takes a while to, get into it. And from there, I thought, what, I liked the business side of things with e-commerce and, people buying, and then, you're selling online and then sending off the package, and people getting good reviews and everything like that. So I really wanted to do something a little bit more bigger scale. And then I jumped in on FireVault. So starting a fire safety company. From there, this is going from a product base to then now a service base. So this one's me physically out on the roads, going to businesses, helping them with their fire maintenance, test and tag. So we're going to have lots of assets, got to have lots of customer experiences as well. So emailing them, notifying them, scheduling, booking, creating reports, invoicing, quoting. It just goes on and on. So your skill set just starts to gradually grow and grow. And a lot of the times you do find yourself along the way that you go, oh, what am I doing? How do I connect these things? And yeah, so it's a great opportunity to learn, and it does take a while. But with all the technology we have now, it's quite, there's a lot of information out there, and you can just decipher through it as well, which helps.
Oh, there is tons of information. And, not only that, now with AI, I think everyone, you can search anything and you can get information anywhere. And now with AI, is actually most of the Google search and things like that is starting to cut the crap, because a lot of times people are writing these long blogs. I don't know if you've ever Googled food and like stuff, food blogs, and all you want to do is find out how long to boil the egg.
Yeah.
And you go through, on a long summer's day, I got a large pot and I discovered that was too big, and you get this huge, long, ridiculous backstory that does not answer the question. And so, yeah, there's tons of information out there, but you got to find the right information. And then you've got to try and whittle that down to maybe, you might have 5 options, but which path do you take? That's where you need to have that sort of ability to talk to other people and learn from that. How have you found, I guess, people around you getting, or even how have you searched through all that information to find the right thing to do?
Yeah, so a great one for me was the quickest and easy way to get from A to B is find someone else who's already done that. And then you just follow their steps and, get mentored by them. So, I've got a great mentor who helped me with 5-volt. I probably, to be honest, I say this all the time. I thank him because I don't think I'd be able to be where I'm at without him and his knowledge that he's done all the hard yards, and he would have had a mentor as well. But cutting down, it's like you're going through a forest and you're like, where do I start? Where do I go? But this person has like cut down trees to build a pathway for you to go, and just makes it so much easier. And I think that's a big key one, because with e-commerce, my Shopify store, I didn't really have a mentor. So it did take me 18 months just to, do a website and do all these things online, and, getting used to that. So I find having someone that can guide you to something where you want and has that expertise in that background saves you a whole lot more time. And yeah.
It seems like you've done quite a lot of different, I guess, business elements, and you've got to deal with everything from recruitment to HR to advertising to sales to finance and admin, and obviously there's a lot of things that happen. How do you keep track of what's happened along the way?
Yeah, so that's a good one, because I feel like you've got these hats, and they always say you got to put the marketing hat on, then you've got to put the sales hat on, then you got to put the worker hat on, employment and HR, all this stuff. So it is very hard to balance. And you'll notice, like, I don't think every single, someone that goes out and starts a business, I don't think we will have a level playing field. You might be really good at sales, you might be terrible at marketing and all these things. So you sort of have to get your skills back up so it's all kind of all rounder with your business. And then otherwise it's hiring people that are really good as well. But that one thing is just finding the different hats that you're good at and the skills. And then if you're not, then it's, further research and further personal development to be able to get to those skills that you don't have. So for me, again, marketing and sales wasn't my big forte. So that was one time I sort of had to, I read some books, sales and marketing, learned from people, started following those people that were really good at it as well, just to, soak up the knowledge so then I can really use it into my business and implement it. Because I think a lot of the times us entrepreneurs and business owners, we struggle a lot, and it's hard to really ask for help as well. So
yeah, it can feel a little bit lonely at times. And I think that the other thing about getting like help is someone that's, at or near where you're at, or maybe like 1 or 2 steps ahead. I think sometimes, you see it a lot on YouTube, and this is being broadcast out to YouTube, is that you get like the more senior creators that have got, millions of followers or whatever, and they're telling younger creators about how, and this is something I've found like trying to grow our YouTube channel, is that the big ones have all the gear, they've got all the money, they've got all the time behind them, they've got, a team creating all this stuff, and then they're saying, oh, well, this is how you do all of this, blah, 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 blah. But then it seems disconnected from where you're at, because they're so far down the journey. Whereas you might look for someone who's just a little bit ahead of where you are right now, to then go, all right, well, now you understand, and you've kind of, the feeling of where, when you were at my position, is still raw. So you still understand perhaps those undercurrent emotional frustrations, or being tired, or dealing with other problems that you may have forgotten after a period of time. So have you ever found that, like in terms of mentoring or finding someone to work with?
Yeah. I mean, the person who's my mentor is, they've got now 3 or 4 staff, and they've been in business for about 3 years or 4-ish years now. So, I'm only in 1 and a bit now. So finding, and what you do see is, you're right, with social media, you'll see people started a company and they're doing millions of dollars and all these clients, and they've got all these things. And, then you really start to look into your self-worth with, oh, well, my business is not doing that. But you got to really take it back, because, I've only been in business for about 1 year and a bit now, and these people have been in business for 10 years, so doing the comparison thing does rob your joy and your self-worth sometimes. So I've learned that one is a big one now. I'll keep reminding myself, I'm only newish in the business area, and it will grow. It's always growing, so the figures are always looking good. So that's a big one. I think that a lot of people forget about is that, these social media gurus that have all these things, but they've been doing that for 10, 15 plus years, so that's where they're at, where they are. And a lot of thing in business is just time. Just time to, it's just a sludge, grow, slow, gradual increase.
And part of that is not going broke in the process while you're trying to build out your business. So how important would you say it is knowing your numbers?
That was something I didn't learn well with my e-commerce brand, with numbers, how much the product was to come over, ship it, how much it was going to cost me to hold it, then packaging, then sending, then, Shopify fees, subscriptions, all these things. So I was like, okay, and you get stressed out, because the main thing you get stressed out is you don't know. So if you know your numbers, then you have a clear cut, this is what I'm earning, this is what I'm expending, and all this sort of thing. So what really helped me and saved me was like a startup cost, but like an Excel spreadsheet of all your costs, incomes, monthly cash flows, all those expenses and stuff. So I know every week what I have to make up for to be able to run the business per year and all this sort of thing. So I'm confident when I go up and I know, oh, this job is going to be this is going to be this. I know that I can, I'll survive this week or survive the next couple of weeks or month or anything like that. So I would say for young people and young entrepreneurs or business people that want to step into business is, I hate maths. I'm not good at maths, but just doing the basics really helps, and having something on an Excel spreadsheet or something that if you've got a great software system that can calculate these numbers, like Xero as well is a good one, having the profit loss sheets and expenses and operating systems and all that sort of thing really helps, because I'm lucky I did it with my Shopify store and had no idea about numbers, and then I really had to ramp it up, because if I did this with Firebolt, it would be a whole ball game. So I would have probably had a bigger loss.
Well, I think that the numbers, and you said you don't quite like maths necessarily, but I think people just need to remember that, as scary as it may seem, you're really only talking about add, subtract, divide, and multiply. Like there's no square root of or to the power of X. Like it's not super mega ultra complicated. You don't really need the world's worst maths. I think it can be a little bit confusing around things like tax codes, GST, where those sorts of funds go and what you need to set aside and all that sort of stuff. But with a little bit of discipline, it shouldn't be that bad. And once you understand what your break-even point is, like you're saying, understanding those numbers, that you then, if there's seasonality, you've got enough money parked aside, that it's going to take, 10% of revenue. And sometimes those numbers change, like you don't want to say, oh, I need to keep 10 grand aside, because what happens if you double your business and then that 10 grand is no longer good enough? Maybe you need 20. So you've got to think more in percentages in that regard, I think. But other than that, I think the maths is the important part. Like no business, no bueno, no next day to contemplate things. Yeah. So obviously that's quite a bit in terms of learning. What are you working on now?
Well, right about now, I'm working actually on, because after our discussion, I really got thinking about my systems in Simpro, and one of the big things is Simpro is great for my, working the reports and invoicing, quoting, and all that sort of thing. But the actual customer experience is not as well. It's a bit clunky, and I have all that, but it's not as great, and it's not where I want to be, and I want it to be a bit better. And since going on your YouTube and looking at the Zoho videos and getting more into Zoho, I'm kind of thinking, and with all the integration, I'm kind of now doing my research, and I want to sort of start to implement that as a better one, so we got better customer experience. Which will help obviously revenue and all that sort of thing. As for Firebolt, we do have a lot of services. So not only just maintenance, but we do fire training, evacuation diagrams, and emergency management plans. So we have a whole design aspect. We have a whole training in-person schedule. We also have our maintenance schedule and test and tag as well. So we have like a fair bit of branches of services. So, and when we start to, it's always reoccurring too, which is great. But we really want to start to get the customer experience to be able to, give a really great service.
So it seems that obviously with lots of services that you've got, I'd imagine some of them have different sales cycles, different customers, different types of customers. And, even though like a small company getting started, you're kind of setting yourself up for success, because what happens is, can sometimes happen is what's called catastrophic success, is that you go so well that the systems cannot keep up and the wheels fall off and the whole thing crashes into the ground. either that happens from the business's perspective or the business owner's perspective, where you just get tired and burnt out, you're stressed, you don't know which way is up, then next thing you know, people are getting divorced and, given moving out of house or whatever. And that's not a great place to be. So having systems early on is excellent. And your ability to then hand over the work to somebody else because it's in a system is so much easier, because you already got the customer, and they don't have to go, oh, what's their number? Who's the point of contact? When did you last speak to them? What did you talk to them about? All of those questions that would be not only your time, but your employees' time. So now there's two people spending 10 minutes debriefing. There's 20 minutes of productivity combined being lost out of the business. But getting that sorted early on can really be a game changer, because now your onboarding time when you bring a new employee is now, instead of 4 weeks before they're effective, could be like 3 weeks or 2 weeks. And so now you're getting the money's worth every time you onboard a new staff member. Now you can do that times 10, 100, whatever. Obviously, there's some other things that happen along the way. So you're looking to go for bigger contracts, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. We do have a contract with Downer, which is great. Something I got early on in the stage, and just by networking is obviously very super powerful. I didn't realize how the power of networking and who and going out and meeting these people, how much benefit you can get out of it as well. That was super powerful. But yeah, you're right with the systems, because I realized that you save a lot of time, and when it does get stressful, you do really just go rely back onto your systems. And if obviously they're not going well, then obviously then it gets more stress back on you, and you have to fix things. And if you don't have time to fix things, then it can get quite chaos. And I've really learned a lot about what people say is build the business up so it doesn't have to be run by you. So I'm sort of trying to do that in the early stages, where it's not all me being able to do it. It's actually the business can sort of run itself and have people in there and sort of just add to it, So I think that's a really tangible thing for a lot of business owners, is that they build the business around them and not actually, and then, when they go or they get sick or something, the whole business can shut down. So I really believe that, if you can build a system where it can kind of run itself and have all these things, and you're laughing.
It's almost like someone wrote a book on it. I think it's called The Business Octopus, and it's about give your business a brain to teach it to grow itself. It's a good book. You should give it a read. I think there's a podcast about it as well. So yeah, give it the systems that like I use the octopus as the methodology, because it's kind of like it's a beast that's not you, the business owner, and then it's got all these tentacles, which is like one on your laptop, one on your phone, one on your computer, or on your website, just like sucking data and information into the system. So when someone messages, it's going to store that. It's going to remember that the last time you contacted them was on a Wednesday on a sunny afternoon, and you should probably follow up again, things like that. So you're kind of baking that customer experience and that relationship building into a system that is now scalable and can transfer over to somebody else. And it's never going to be perfect. Like your way of doing things or the way you enter information, there's going to be a slight nuanced difference in the way the next person does it. So the information is not going to be perfect, but having some information is better than having none, and having some information that someone can extrapolate from. They go, all right, well, I know this much about that client, I can figure out the rest. Or maybe now my question to the boss, instead of it being a 30-minute like handover discussion, can now be like a 5-minute question or a short email. Hey, what did you do with this? Oh yeah, I did that. Sweet. Add that now to the database. Now we're good to go. So that compounding, and one big thing is start writing knowledge articles. Start recording videos on how I do this and how I do that. And then when you have a new employee come in, the first thing you have to do is just hand over that folder and go, watch this. And I try to do the videos and the content and the articles as I need to do them. So I'm not like going and sitting down and going, I'm going to create content because I think someone might need this one day. It's going, I'm going to raise an invoice for this customer. I'm just going to hit record and do it. And then when I'm done, that's now a knowledge article repository ready for the person that I anticipate that I'm going to hire one day to do that job. So that's just, you're kind of doing it in action. It's called like knowledge-centered support. So you're providing you're providing the content based on real world action and need, not because you think someone might need it one day. So
anyway.
there's a lot around that, because sometimes people go, right, War and Peace, and it's ridiculous, and they never needed to in the first place. So, we've talked about growing, bigger contracts, and we talked about building systems to an extent, and we've talked also about like getting mentors. We did also mention we'd cover, growing your recurring revenue base. You know, just talk more about like your thinking around that.
Yeah, I think it costs a lot more to get a new customer than to have a reoccurring customer that will keep coming back, because the amount of time and money that you spend to get those new clients and then to keep them, I think it's a lot easier to maintain and keep those clients. So you want to keep them happy. So, and I guess I think with my business, with fire and safety and all that, it is reoccurring work. So it's kind of, it's good. We just want to keep maintaining our clients. Because once we have them, if we get a good service, they're going to keep with us, because they have to be serviced every 6 months and all those sort of things. And it's all compulsory by the Australian standards. So I'm quite lucky in that aspect. A lot of other businesses have to, like if a plumber, electrician and chippies kind of have to keep finding those new clients, and, each client will cost you to be able to get a new one. So you're right. Yeah, it's reoccurring is a very tangible business.
I think it also just gives you safety and stability, in the sense that if you're hiring employees and you know that at least 80% of their wage is covered by a recurring cost, you know that it's probably not going to be that much harder to get a couple of ad hoc invoices come through that can cover the remainder of their wage, and then create a profit margin for you. Or at least if all of your fixed costs are covered by recurrings, then it just means that where the next bill is coming from. So it gives you confidence that if you're going to hire that person, you're not going to have to fire them 2 months later, just because there's no money in the door. So I think that that recurring revenue, particularly where you've got that, if they need a regular 6-month refresh of that, is excellent. The thing that I guess I would caution you on is seasonality, is because people probably aren't going to renew over like a Christmas period or something like that. So you probably need to come up with some savings to cover you for end of year, or, those gaps when you don't have that recurring work on, because there'll be a month or two where it's just dead. So you might even look at your overall contracts and then look at those quiet periods. And then maybe when you're having the conversation with the client, just say, hey, do you want to start this next month? Either give them a special rate on the first go or something, just so that you pepper those revenue events evenly throughout the year, so you don't have any like overly excessive high periods and then massive drops.
Yeah, the predictability with recurring work is good. So you can predict your months almost, because if I service them in January, I know in June I'm going to be back there. So you can kind of play your months as they go, which is great.
Yeah. And you can drop that out on forecasts and things like that. So what does the future look like?
Well, future is always a big one, because I think with a lot of things in business, you kind of have an idea, and then the idea just completely changes, and it keeps changing each year, because you find that this is really good, this isn't, and all that sort of thing. Future of Fireball, I imagine, and what I've put in my vision board, I'd love to have another employee to come out and help me. I would love to have veterans, employ some veterans to go out there and actually really deliver the training packages that we have, which is the fire and emergency and all that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed it from my experience from going out into different businesses, and I get to actually look at all these different businesses, how they work, what their structure's like and all that, and get a really good insight, and they show me around and everything like that. And then we train them on their fire and emergency capabilities, because that's probably the most devastating thing to a business. If you were to have a fire and it takes out everything, well, you've lost everything. So it's probably one of the most important things. But I really do enjoy from the veterans experience that they get from the army, they can implement those same sort of things into a business. It's like having your own personal veteran on fire and safety, coming into the business and going, hey, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about this with security, even fire, blah, blah, blah. So, and the experience comes from when you are in it, when you are in a emergency, your heart rate, how you react, you got fight, flight, freeze, all these little extra tips and tricks that a veteran can really give to. So my vision for the future is I want at least 5 employees and going around Brisbane, Sunny Coast and Gold Coast and just really delivering a great service.
So how would you, I guess, bringing the next people on obviously there's the customer experience side. And as a business owner, like, the perfect way to do everything. And eventually when you hand that off, it's never going to be quite exactly how you envisage it. So I guess, how are you going to cope with that? Are you okay? Like, do you understand that it's never going to be exactly the way you pictured it? But I guess, what are your coping mechanisms? How do you anticipate to handle that?
I think with your advice on filming things when I do them now and having those process systems in place in the sheets. So, for example, I did do that the other day when I had an accounting thing and I paid for some training so that I can get trained on my BAS, and because I didn't understand BAS, and I was like, oh, I can do this myself. Got trained up on it, and you got the whole recording, and then I did it myself and did it through my system and everything like that. I found it really helpful because it also reinforced what I learned as well. So when you teach something, you almost retain 90% of that information. So as a trainer and assessor, I think with the audio, don't get me right on the numbers, don't be too harsh, but I think it's 30% auditory, 40 or 50% reading, and then it's 90%. If you're teaching it, that's how much you'll retain the information of whatever you've produced. So I think with that one, I will start doing that a lot more with filming, starting writing the processes of how our systems work, so I can get that new employee in. And like you said, instead of spending that 6 weeks with them, especially with all the services that we do, I'm going to really need to knuckle down on each of the procedures for everything, because it's all in here in my head in the system. But to then copy paste that into someone else, I'm going to need a lot of work and content for them. So.
Well, don't forget that, there's probably like a minimum viable product, right? So that you don't need to, like what I was saying before, is that you're not creating knowledge articles for the sake of it. You're creating it based on fact. So it could just start off as a few dot points, but that's where continuous improvement comes in, is that next time you do it, you go, all right, well, we experienced that the employee didn't know this, so let's put a link into a bit more information or add a video. And then that's like phase 2. And then later on, you might say, well, we found this, but now if we add this other thing, then the customer's much happier, and then it leads to like more sales. So let's add that bit in. So you're creating content that is now more usable because it's based on your specific business scenario. I mean, you can go and definitely Google 100 templates, but there's an acronym called TLDR, too long didn't read. So you need to boil it down into the bare basics, give it like really accurate sort of this is what the process is, this is what you need to do, this is the outcomes. And don't write like a 50-page document, because ain't nobody got time for that. And it's just going to mean that no one's going to read it. So and the other thing I would say is put it into a searchable database that people can easily access, or like even if there's like a password access for your team, that they can find that process if it's like behind the scenes stuff that you don't want public. But also think of dual purpose. Like if I create a video that can also be a bit of a marketing tool, then that can not only be given to my team member for training, but it can now be put out on social media or something like that to say, hey, when we go and do fire safety training, we put a little gold star sticker on your chart or something like that. Just something that makes it a little bit more, how do we think about that marketing side? Because marketing, not only is it for the outside people that are buying your services, there's internal marketing as well. When you go and have corporate events, or when people are doing, employer branding. So that's like, this is what it's like to work with us. And then that goes into like the job ads and things like that. So having those little elements that bring your personality and brand back into it really help get the employee to go, yeah, I really like working at this place. It also helps find new employees. It also means that you can do two birds, one stone, in that you've got a training thing that's supposed to be internal, and then you've got a marketing thing that works externally as well. So I just try to think, how do I use my time the best and do the least? So it actually pays to be a little bit lazy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. I was thinking the other day about your business hierarchy, or the hierarchy of business.
Oh, business hierarchy of needs. Yep.
Yeah. And how I was just looking at that and going, I wrote it on my whiteboard behind, and I was trying to write it all down, and it's because there's so many, and then just following those steps.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Maslow's hierarchy needs, like for a human, there's some basic stuff that everybody's got to have. So you can't leave the house these days without your phone, and then you're pretty much going to need to have your laptop. So in your case, you might have like maybe tablets or something to handle your field service management software, but you need that base tech layer, and that then enables the next thing, which is, you know, those software tools for you. That might be those your operational management system, which is doing well, one is like Xero, that's your finances, or Mile, whatever you use, and then the other one is like Simpro, which is the field service management platform. And then on top, the capstone, the thing that stitches everything together, is like that CRM, whatever platform it should be, tying together the human relationship and connecting all those things, including your employees, your partners, your customers, stakeholders, or any other person that's going to have a relationship that affects your business in some way, shape, or form. And being able to track that and scale that up and then share that knowledge with others means that now you have a much better a living and breathing organism instead of something that is only you. I mean, there's countless business owners come to us and say, I've got this person, their business is worth nothing because it's all in their head and they cannot transfer a single thing. Can you implement a CRM? So that's the kind of power that it gives you. It adds to the valuation of your company at the end of the day. So, sorry, I feel like this has gone into more of like a training kind of coaching session, but I think that in terms of podcast goes, you know, obviously we've covered, you know, where you're from, what you're doing now, and where you're going. I guess, is there anything you'd leave as advice for anyone listening on, you know, I guess, steps in the journey, tips, tricks, what to look out for, or maybe just something you want to leave them with?
Yeah, so no, I really appreciate it. It's I'm always up for learning because business is a never-ending learning. I think it's just a personal development journey that you didn't understand that you were going to go through that until you start a business. Some of the biggest advice I would say is probably find a mentor, that you find someone that is where you want to be, and then, you know, approach them, ask for them, pay for them, or whatever it is, to then follow what they're doing, and you can really get to the place, you know, 10 times quicker, to be honest. And just enjoy the journey, even though, you know, it's ups and downs. It's always ups and downs, I guess. Unless you do have a phenomenal business that has all the systems in place and it can handle that. But as you start out, you're always going to have ups and downs. So I think it's really, when you get to a bottom part, and you know, don't tie your business worth with your self-worth. That's always a big one, because a lot of people are, oh, I'm not making money this week, then, you know, I'm shit and all this sort of thing. So, you know, you really want to be able to show up as a person when they're at the bottom, and just punch through and never give up, I guess, because it will always tumble as you go and learn more. So.
Absolutely. Well, it's been absolutely amazing to have you on the podcast, and just to get, you know, your perspective as someone sort of new, fresh, and, you know, you're a real up and comer. You're quite a go-getter, and I love that you've really sort of gone straight for the systems, because that, like I said, that's that sort of leverage point that normally other people will just hit that glass ceiling and can't push through. So now you're kind of like absolutely primed for growth. You just need to do more on the sales and marketing side and fill that funnel, and then keep it full. And then, you know, your staff will come, your Ferrari will come eventually, whatever it is that you're chasing. So, and just talking about mentors and things like that, a great place to go is the Relevate community. We've got an online community for anyone listening that wants to learn a little bit more about digital tips and tricks, systems, etc. You can join, and the community is a great place. There's heaps of partners and other people that might be great mentor opportunities as well. So if you want to find out more about Hayden and FireVault, then you can go to firevault.com.au, and as usual, the link will be in the post comments. But otherwise, thank you for listening. It's been amazing having you on. And if you're watching the show, make sure you give us a like, a subscribe, and a follow, and leave us a comment if you've got any questions. If you'd like to be on the show, don't forget to go to relevate.com.au and fill out the contact form, and we'll be in touch. But otherwise, you take care.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.